Mark's hands trembled as he stared at his phone, the text message blurring through his tears. "Sorry, but when you mentioned having a daughter, I realized this won't work for me. Good luck." He'd been sitting alone at the restaurant for 45 minutes now, the Christmas decorations around him seeming to mock his loneliness. As he signaled for the check, a woman at the next table caught his eye. "Excuse me," she said softly, "I couldn't help overhearing. Would you like some company?" Little did Mark know that this chance encounter would change everything, and that sometimes, the greatest Christmas gifts come when you've stopped believing in miracles. If you've ever felt alone during the holidays or wondered if second chances at love really exist, this story will touch your heart. Like and subscribe for more real-life stories that remind us all that hope can find us in our darkest moments. The Christmas lights twinkled through the restaurant window, casting colorful shadows across Mark Wilson's face as he checked his watch for the 5th time. 45 minutes late. He took another sip of his now cold coffee and scrolled through his messages again, hoping he'd somehow missed a notification. Nothing. At 38, Mark hadn't expected to be here, a single father trying to navigate the dating world while raising his 8-year-old daughter, Lily. His wife Sarah had passed away 3 years ago after a brief but brutal battle with cancer, leaving him to piece together a life he never imagined. "Can I get you anything else, sir?" the waitress asked, sympathy evident in her eyes. She'd been checking on him periodically, each visit becoming increasingly awkward. "Just the check, please," Mark replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. As the waitress walked away, his phone buzzed. His heart leapt, then immediately sank as he read the message. "Sorry, but when you mentioned having a daughter, I realized this won't work for me. Good luck." Mark stared at the screen, a familiar heaviness settling in his chest. This wasn't the first time a potential date had disappeared after learning about Lily. He understood that not everyone wanted an instant family, but the rejection still stung, especially today, on December 23rd, when the holiday loneliness felt particularly acute. He slipped his phone into his pocket and reached for his wallet, trying to ignore the happy couples around him, the Christmas music playing overhead, the entire restaurant seemingly wrapped in holiday cheer that only amplified his isolation. "Excuse me." Mark looked up to see a woman standing beside his table. She had warm brown eyes and dark curly hair that fell just past her shoulders. She wore a simple green sweater that complemented her olive skin, and there was something kind in her expression that made him pause. "I'm sorry to intrude," she continued, "but I was sitting over there." She gestured to a small table near the window, "and I couldn't help noticing you've been waiting for quite a while." Mark felt heat rise to his face. Great, now he was an object of pity. "It's fine," he said quickly. "Just a misunderstanding about plans." The woman hesitated, then asked, "Would you mind some company? I'm actually dining alone too, and it seems silly for us both to sit by ourselves when we could share a table. Unless you'd rather be alone, which I completely understand." There was something refreshingly direct about her approach. No pretense, no awkward dating app small talk. Just human connection. "I'd like that," Mark found himself saying. "I'm Mark." "Elena," she replied with a smile that transformed her entire face. "Elena Reyes." As Elena settled into the chair across from him, Mark noticed she carried a book, a well-worn copy of A Christmas Carol. "Holiday reading?" he asked, nodding toward the book. Elena laughed, a warm sound that seemed to cut through the heaviness he'd been feeling. "Annual tradition. I read it every December. There's something about Dickens that just feels right this time of year." "My daughter feels the same way about How the Grinch Stole Christmas," Mark said, then immediately tensed, waiting for the usual shift in expression that came when he mentioned Lily. Instead, Elena's eyes brightened. "How old is your daughter?" 8. "Her name is Lily." "That's a wonderful age. They're still so full of magic and wonder, but they're starting to understand the world too." Mark relaxed slightly. "You have kids?" "No," Elena said, a flicker of something crossing her face. I'm a pediatric nurse, though, so I spend my days with children. I love it, even on the hard days. The waitress returned, surprised to find Mark with company. They ordered fresh coffee and dessert, and as they waited, Mark found himself telling Elena about his blind date disaster. Her loss, Elena said simply. Anyone who sees a child as a deal-breaker rather than understanding they're part of an amazing package doesn't deserve your time anyway. It happens more often than you'd think, Mark admitted. Dating as a single parent is challenging. I can imagine. But Lily is lucky to have a dad who puts her first. Their conversation flowed easily after that. Elena told him about growing up in a large Puerto Rican family in Chicago before moving to their city 5 years ago for work. Mark shared stories about Lily's latest school project and his job as an architectural engineer. They discovered a shared love of old movies, hiking, and terrible dad jokes. "What's your plan for Christmas?" Elena asked as they finished their coffee. "Just me and Lily. We'll open presents in the morning, make pancakes, watch Christmas movies. My parents are in Florida now, and Sarah's family, well, things got complicated after she passed." Elena nodded understandingly. "That sounds lovely though. Simple but meaningful. What about you?" "I'm working Christmas Eve at the hospital, but I have Christmas Day off. Probably just a quiet day at home with leftovers and movies. My family's all back in Chicago." Mark hesitated, then found himself saying, "You know, if you wanted company on Christmas Day, you'd be welcome to join us. Lily always makes too many pancakes, and we could use someone to help judge our gingerbread house competition." The word surprised him as much as they seemed to surprise Elena. He hadn't invited anyone into their Christmas routine since Sarah died. Elena's expression softened. "That's incredibly kind of you, but I wouldn't want to intrude on your time with Lily." "It wouldn't be an intrusion," Mark said, realizing he meant it. "Actually, it would be nice to have another adult around. But no pressure, really." Elena considered for a moment, then smiled. "I'd like that. Thank you." They exchanged numbers, and as they prepared to leave the restaurant, Mark felt lighter than he had in months. What had started as one of the most humiliating evenings of his life had somehow transformed into something unexpectedly pleasant. Outside, snow had begun to fall, dusting the sidewalk with a fine powder that glittered under the streetlights. "Can I walk you to your car?" Mark offered. "I actually took the bus," Elena said. "The hospital's just a few blocks from here, and parking is a nightmare. Let me drive you home then. It's getting late, and the weather's turning." Elena hesitated, then nodded. "That would be nice, thank you." As they walked to his car, their shoulders occasionally brushing, Mark felt a strange sense of familiarity, as if they'd known each other much longer than a few hours. He couldn't remember the last time he'd connected with someone so easily. The drive to Elena's apartment was filled with comfortable conversation and the soft sound of Christmas music from the radio. When they arrived, Mark pulled up to the curb and put the car in park. "Thank you for rescuing my evening," he said sincerely. "What started as a disaster turned into one of the nicest nights I've had in a long time." "I had a wonderful time too," Elena replied. "Sometimes the universe has different plans than we do." She reached into her purse and pulled out a pen, then wrote something on a napkin from the restaurant. "Here's my address for Christmas Day. Is noon okay?" "Noon is perfect," Mark said, taking the napkin. "Lily will be excited to meet you." Elena smiled and opened the car door. "Good night, Mark. And Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, Elena." As he watched her walk to her building, Mark felt something he hadn't experienced in years, a flutter of possibility, a tiny spark of hope that perhaps the future might hold more than just getting through each day. When Mark arrived home, his babysitter, Mrs. Patel from next door, was dozing on the couch with a mystery novel open on her lap. She startled awake as he closed the front door. "I'm so sorry," she said, adjusting her glasses. "I must have nodded off." No worries at all, Mark assured her. How was Lily? An angel, as always. She went to bed at 8 after we finished her Christmas craft. She's very excited about the holidays. Mark smiled. That makes one of us. Mrs. Patel gave him a knowing look as she gathered her things. And how was your date? The original one was a no-show, Mark admitted. But I ended up meeting someone else. Actually, we might have a guest for Christmas dinner. Mrs. Patel's eyebrows shot up. Well, that's a development. Good for you, Mark. It's time you had some happiness. After seeing Mrs. Patel out, Mark quietly opened Lily's bedroom door. His daughter was fast asleep, her dark hair, so like her mother's, spread across the pillow. Her room was a testament to her personality, bookshelves overflowing with stories, a desk covered in art supplies, and walls decorated with her drawings. A small Christmas tree sat on her dresser, decorated with handmade ornaments. Mark felt the familiar ache in his chest, the wish that Sarah could see how amazing their daughter was becoming. He gently pulled Lily's blanket up higher and kissed her forehead before leaving the room. In the kitchen, he found a paper plate with a misshapen Christmas cookie on it, covered with plastic wrap. A note in Lily's careful handwriting read, "For you, Daddy. Hope your date was nice." Mark smiled, feeling a pang of guilt. He hadn't told Lily much about his date tonight, just that he was having dinner with a friend. He wasn't sure how to navigate dating as a single parent, how much to share with Lily, when to introduce her to someone new. The last thing he wanted was for her to get attached to someone who might disappear. But Elena seemed different somehow. The way she'd asked about Lily with genuine interest, not just polite obligation. The ease of their conversation. The lack of pressure or expectation. As he got ready for bed, Mark found himself looking forward to Christmas Day in a way he hadn't in years. The holiday had been difficult since Sarah's death, a time when her absence felt most acute. He and Lily had established new traditions, but there was always something missing, an empty chair at the table that neither of them acknowledged but both felt keenly. Maybe having Elena join them would be good for both of them. A new energy, a fresh perspective. Not a replacement, never that, but perhaps the beginning of something different. Something healing. Christmas Eve morning dawned bright and cold, sunlight reflecting off the fresh snow that had fallen overnight. Mark woke to the sound of Lily's excited footsteps in the hallway. Dad! Dad! It snowed! Can we build a snowman before we go to Grandma's party? Mark groaned and checked the time, 6:45 a.m. Lil, it's not even 7 yet. Lily appeared in his doorway, already dressed in a red and green outfit, her hair hastily pulled into uneven pigtails. But Dad, the snow might melt. Mark chuckled. It's 20 degrees outside. That snow isn't going anywhere. But he got up anyway, because how could he deny that face anything? After a quick breakfast of cereal and toast, they bundled up and headed to the backyard, where they spent the next hour constructing what Lily declared was the most perfect snowman in the history of snow people. As they worked, Mark casually mentioned, "So, I was thinking we might have a guest for Christmas tomorrow." Lily looked up, her cheeks pink from the cold. Who? Her name is Elena. I met her last night at the restaurant. On your date? Lily asked, her eyes widening. Well, not exactly. My date didn't show up, but I met Elena there, and we got talking. She's very nice. She's a nurse who takes care of kids at the hospital. Lily considered this information carefully as she patted snow onto the snowman's middle section. Is she your girlfriend now? Mark nearly choked. No, no. We just met. She's a new friend, and she was going to be alone for Christmas, so I thought it would be nice to invite her over. Like in those Christmas movies where strangers become family? Mark smiled at his daughter's romanticized view. Something like that. Is that okay with you? If you're not comfortable with it, I can call her and explain. Lily shook her head decisively. No, she should come. Nobody should be alone on Christmas. And we have extra pancake mix. That's very thoughtful of you, Lil. Plus, Lily added with an 8-year-old's practicality, we need an odd number for the gingerbread house competition so someone can be the judge. Mark laughed and ruffled her hair. Good point. Later that day, they attended the annual Christmas Eve party at Mark's former mother-in-law's house. It was always a bittersweet event. Margaret Reynolds had made an effort to keep Mark and Lily in her life after Sarah's death, but there was an undercurrent of sadness that permeated these gatherings. Sarah's absence was palpable in a house filled with her childhood photos and memories. As they drove to Margaret's house, Mark felt the familiar knot of tension forming in his stomach. These visits were important for Lily, who adored her grandmother, but they were emotionally draining for Mark. Every corner of that house held a memory of Sarah. Margaret greeted them at the door with hugs and exclamations over how much Lily had grown. At 72, she was still elegant and energetic, her silver hair styled perfectly, her home decorated with tasteful Christmas splendor. "Mark, you look tired," she said, patting his cheek in that way that always made him feel like he was failing somehow. "Are you getting enough rest?" "I'm fine, Margaret," he assured her. "Just busy with work and the holidays." The house was filled with Sarah's extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, all of whom made an effort to include Mark and Lily, though there was always a subtle awkwardness. He was the widower, the reminder of their collective loss. During dinner, Margaret asked Lily about their Christmas plans. "We're having pancakes and opening presents," Lily announced. "And Dad's new friend Elena is coming over." The table went quiet. Margaret's eyebrows rose as she turned to Mark. "Elena?" Mark felt heat rise to his face. "Just a friend I met recently. She was going to be alone for Christmas, so I invited her to join us." Margaret's expression was unreadable. "How nice," she said finally, though her tone suggested otherwise. Later, as Mark was helping clear the dishes, Margaret cornered him in the kitchen. "Mark, it's been 3 years," she said quietly. "I know exactly how long it's been, Margaret. I didn't mean it like that." She sighed. I worry about Lily getting attached to someone who might not stay." "It's just Christmas dinner," Mark said, trying to keep the defensiveness from his voice. "Elena's a nice person who would otherwise be alone for the holiday." Margaret studied his face. "But you like her?" It wasn't a question. "I barely know her," Mark replied, though he couldn't deny there had been a connection. "And even if I did, would that be so terrible? To maybe want some companionship again?" Margaret's expression softened. "Of course not. Sarah would want you to be happy, you know that. I want that too. She trailed off, then squeezed his arm. "Bring her to dinner sometime. I'd like to meet her." The invitation surprised him. "Really?" "Yes, really. You're still family, Mark. That didn't change when Sarah died." On the drive home, with Lily dozing in the back seat clutching the new book her grandmother had given her, Mark found himself thinking about Elena. He barely knew her, yet he'd invited her into their most intimate family holiday. It was impulsive, out of character for his usually cautious approach to life post-Sarah. But something about Elena had felt right. There had been no pretense, no awkward dating rituals. Just two people connecting on a human level. His phone buzzed with a text message. At a stoplight, he glanced down to see Elena's name on the screen. "Just finished my shift at the hospital. Looking forward to tomorrow. Is there anything I can bring?"